So one question we get asked every single week is which tiles are suitable for fireplaces? And the catch-all answer to that is porcelain. Porcelain is suitable for all styles of fireplaces, but to give you a little bit more choice, let's drill it down a bit. So let's start with the false fireplace. You know, that sort of focal point you create in a room, just so you've got this lovely ambient space, but you're never actually going to use it as a fireplace. You might put candles in it or some logs to give you the atmosphere, but it's never going to have to be actually concerned with heat generating from that space. So in that case, you can use absolutely any tile you like. When it comes to the hearth, you might want to use something that's a little bit more robust than a wall tile, because when you get the hoover out and you're cleaning, obviously it's going to take a certain amount of wear and you may find that the odd person steps on it. So if you want something that's a little bit more robust there, yeah, go for a floor tile. But other than that, sky's the limit. Now let's talk about traditional style fireplaces. Do you know the sort of ones I mean? Period style fireplace, maybe in a Victorian house with a lovely mantle around it. And then you've got that fabulous metal structure that actually has the basket for the fire and normally has beautiful traditional tiles running down the outside. Well, strangely enough, those tiles were not porcelain, and they certainly managed to cope with the test of time. However, you think about it, and those tiles are actually pointing out towards the room, not at the fire. So the actual temperature they have to cope with is not as extreme as if they were cocooning or surrounding the fireplace. So the tiles then are a standard wall tile. What you may find is that over years, because of the change in temperature, and because of the change in temperature, the tile has to expand and contract as that heat level changes. You might get this lovely little cobweb of crazing over the surface of the tile, but actually it looks absolutely beautiful. So if you're happy that your tiles may craze over time, you can go and put a standard wall tile in that type of environment and it'll look great. Now, I touched on it a moment ago, but let's talk about hearths. Hearths are one of those fantastic opportunities for you to sneak a little bit of pattern into a room without worrying about it completely dominating the space. So you can choose anything from a really beautiful patterned floor tile. If the fireplace itself is not being used as a real fire, any floor tile would look fab. If you're not worried about people walking on the hearth itself, you could even put a wall tile on there. But if it is a working fire, then the hearth really should be made of porcelain. And you can have some fantastic patterned porcelains that'll inject a little bit of fun and detail into the space. Or you could go for a really lovely brick-shaped porcelain tile and lay it in a herringbone design, for example, and it'd look absolutely fab. Now, what is it about log burners all of a sudden? Nearly all of our clients are putting log burners in, which is absolutely fantastic, but you really have to be careful with the tiles you use around a log burner. So let's talk about the scenarios. Some log burners end up being placed into an original fire opening, so they're actually surrounded by walls. And if you want to tile those, then you really need to think about this, because log burners are designed to push out as much heat in every direction as they can. So those tiles are going to be really, really put to the test. And by having a porcelain tile, the structure is more robust, so it can cope with the changes in temperature as your fire is lit and then, goes out in the evenings. So porcelain tiles, absolutely perfect. But imagine if you're putting your wood burner into a large old ingle nook, plenty of space around it with air flowing around it. Then having a porcelain tile isn't quite so critical. We can't promise you that if you put a standard tile into that setting that it will be fine. There is no guarantee. If you want a guarantee, you need to stick with your porcelain. But if you are a bit of a sort of an interior design buff and you haven't found a porcelain tile that really meets your criteria and you've got a lot of air going around your log burner, then you might want to try something that isn't porcelain, but obviously at your own risk. It'll look fab, but it just may not look fab for the next 20 years. So now let's just talk about feature fireplaces. You know, the sort of fireplaces you put into a contemporary setting. You'll design a particular size of chimney breast. You might decide to put a floating shelf across it to give it a bit more of a sort of a retro feel. And it might be the housing for an offset gas fire, for example. Now, if you're thinking of tiling that, which looks absolutely fab, by the way, then you need to think about the style of fire that you are integrating into your design. If it is going to be producing heat, always your best bet is to go for porcelain, and you can go for wood effect porcelain, stone effect porcelain, some of the patterned porcelains. There's a lot of choice around. Or again, you could go for a really lovely brick effect porcelain tile that's very heavily glazed. That would look really, really ambient and have lots of character and a little bit unusual. But don't forget, if the tiles are going into an area where you've got an open fire with an open basket with logs, for example, those tiles really do have to be porcelain. If, however, it's a feature fireplace and you're putting a low wattage electric heater in there, or just having a false opening, then really there's so much choice with regards to tiles. You can choose anything you like. So hopefully you've now got all the information you need to create an absolutely beautiful, practical fireplace.